Welcome back to Everyday News. This is our latest update. Weeks of diplomatic efforts unraveled in just 90 seconds as former President Donald Trump berated Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office. The heated exchange exposed the inability of America's allies to sway Trump's stance on ending Russia's invasion, regardless of Ukraine's position. Trump's forceful approach underscored his commitment to reshaping U.S. foreign policy based on his America First agenda. His willingness to redirect American priorities signaled a shift that extended beyond his first term. The confrontation marked one of the most intense public exchanges between world leaders in recent memory. The typically formal setting of the Oval Office dissolved into an arena of finger-pointing, shouting, and visible frustration. Trump's ultimatum to Zelensky, "You either make a deal or we are out," put Ukraine in a precarious position. Without U.S. backing, Kiev's ability to defend itself against Russia's brutal invasion remains uncertain. Despite the confrontation, Zelensky took to social media to express gratitude to the American people, Trump, and Congress for their support. He emphasized the historic bond between the two nations and his hope for strong future relations. The dramatic Oval Office meeting capped a week of intense but ultimately unsuccessful diplomatic efforts by U.S. allies. European leaders had attempted to bridge the widening gap between Washington and Kiev, while discouraging Trump's overtures toward Moscow. Earlier in the week, French President Emmanuel Macron met with Trump, proposing a European-led peacekeeping force to deter Russian aggression. However, despite their strong handshake, the United States diverged from its European allies at the United Nations by refusing to condemn Russia's invasion in a series of resolutions marking the war's third anniversary. As House members wrapped up their week and left Washington, Representative Rosa DeLauro, the lead Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, expressed frustration that Republicans had yet to respond to her latest offer on a full-year spending bill, despite it being made 5 days earlier. Meanwhile, her Republican counterpart, Representative Tom Cole, dismissed Democratic attempts to include legislative assurances that President Donald Trump's administration would spend the approved funding as intended. Representative Tom Cole: "The Republican Senate and House are not going to limit what a president can do, particularly when he has to sign the bill." These tensions highlight the deep divides as the nation nears the March 14th deadline to prevent a partial government shutdown. In recent years, shutdown threats have become routine, with lawmakers usually finding a way to compromise, or at least passing a temporary funding extension. However, with Trump now in the White House and bypassing Congress on previous funding decisions, negotiations have grown more contentious, raising concerns about whether lawmakers can avoid a shutdown this time. The groundwork for the current budget standoff was laid nearly 2 years ago, when then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and then President Joe Biden agreed to a 2-year budget deal. The deal aimed to keep non-defense spending flat for 2024, while slightly increasing defense funding, with a 1% boost for both categories in 2025. Democrats want to uphold that agreement, which sets defense spending at about $895.2 billion, and non-defense spending at $780.4 billion. However, Republicans are pushing for cuts to non-defense programs, with Cole arguing they are not bound to a deal negotiated by leaders who are no longer in office. While it's unclear how far apart the two sides are, Senator Patty Murray, the top Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, suggested they were close. Senator Patty Murray: "We are close on top-line spending, but we need to know Republicans are willing to work with us to protect Congress's power of the purse." Trump has aggressively moved to freeze federal grants and loans potentially worth trillions while conducting a sweeping review of federal programs. Though a subsequent memorandum appeared to rescind this pause, a federal judge recently issued an injunction to block the freeze, warning it placed critical programs for children, the elderly, and everyone in between in serious jeopardy. At the same time, Trump has empowered Elon Musk to spearhead efforts to fire thousands of federal employees and possibly dismantle entire agencies created by Congress. Democrats are pushing to insert provisions into the spending bill to ensure the administration follows congressional intent. What we've been talking about is the numbers, and we're talking about the issue of assurances. It's trying to make it possible to have the money go as intended. Republicans, however, are rejecting these demands. Democrats are placing completely unreasonable conditions on the negotiations. They want us to limit the scope of executive authority. They want us to tie the hands of the president. The government's fiscal year began in October, meaning lawmakers are already 5 months behind schedule on passing a budget. Trump on Truth Social blamed Biden, saying he left us a total mess. He called for a short-term spending bill to fund the government until September. However, it was congressional Republicans who decided in December to delay budget negotiations, expecting that Trump would be in the White House by March. Johnson had argued at the time for a short-term extension so that Republicans could put our fingerprints on the spending. The first fallback option is a continuing resolution, a stopgap measure that keeps the government funded at current levels. Speaker Johnson acknowledged this may be the only viable option, saying, "Speaker Johnson, it looks as though it is becoming inevitable at this point," while blaming Democrats. However, a continuing resolution presents challenges for both parties. Republicans, particularly defense hawks, argue the Pentagon is already underfunded. Democrats worry that critical programs, such as housing, childcare, and nutrition assistance, will fail to keep up with inflation, straining the social safety net. Murray and DeLauro urged Republicans to return to negotiations, warning that walking away raises the risk of a shutdown. They also accused the GOP's continuing resolution plan of giving Trump new flexibility to spend funding as he sees fit. If Congress fails to act, government funding will expire at midnight on March 14th. Both parties are already positioning to blame the other. Trump has experience with government shutdowns. He presided over the longest shutdown in U.S. history, lasting 35 days, and only relented when airport delays and missed paychecks for federal workers forced urgent action. With time running out, both parties must decide whether to compromise or risk another painful shutdown battle. Like and subscribe to Everyday News.